Hey guys, I want to welcome you to our protein lecture. This one is going to be super quick, so I'm sure you'll love it. As you guys probably know, proteins contribute to things such as muscle, like we have here. And remember, what we are learning today is our third out of four macromolecule, which should alert you guys that we are pretty much done with this chapter. Okay, so as we had talked about so far, we have covered both carbohydrates and lipids. Okay, and remember, carbohydrates, this is things such as pasta, candy, right? Whereas lipids, those were things like butters, right, and oils. Right, so the thing with proteins, as we kind of hinted to earlier, right, they're very important in our body building muscle. Okay, that's their big importance, is that our body uses them as a building block for muscle. And if you look over here, we have a whole list of foods that are high in protein, some that you wouldn't really think of, okay? The big one that I want to focus on is the meat and fish, okay? When I ask you for an example of, oh, what could possibly be a protein, I want you guys to be able to say, oh, it must be meat and fish. And even eggs and beans, those can all count. But we're going to think of cheese more as dairy and bread more as carbohydrates. So meat and fish, eggs and beans, those are all good. Okay, so where we're headed to next is basically talking about what does macromolecule mean. All right, this is a review, right? And if you guys remember, macromolecules means, right, they're these large components. That's exactly what they are. Okay, and they're formed from small subunits that we call monomers. This is probably at least the third time we've gone over this, so this should really be getting into a repetitious cycle. And these join in one large unit, which we call a polymer, right? Again, that should be pretty much review. Monomers are these individual units while polymers are many of these monomers that are bound together. And this happens in a process, right, which we call polymerization. Polymerization, right? We call it polymerization, which should make sense, okay? Again, I don't know why this picture's not here, but it's the same one that you've had in your notes a bunch of times. That shows the monomers becoming the polymers. And again, it's important to remember that these macromolecules, the reason that we're learning about all four, is that they're found in all living things. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so let's go into proteins. Proteins are made up of these things called amino acids, okay? And we're going to think of the amino acids as the monomers okay, the individual units that we just talked about on the previous slide that fuse together. This is polymerization, right? They fuse together and they make something that we call a peptide. So it is the peptide here that is the polymer. Okay, amino acids are the monomers and peptides are the polymers. So peptides are made up of amino acids, right? Proteins are made up of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, right? These are all things that we have talked about before because those are the three components of carbohydrates and of lipids. But the unique thing to proteins is that they're also made up of nitrogen. And again, this is unique to proteins, that every single one has this. Okay, unique to proteins. Awesome. So what do we need proteins for? Well, they first of all help us fight disease. Okay, they are part of our immune system. Which is really cool. Okay, they help control our muscles and even build them. Okay, and then third, this one's probably most important and the one that's least talked about, is that they regulate chemical reactions. This is something we're super briefly going to talk about right now. But again, in the future, actually in our next unit, it's going to be the major subject. What I want you guys to note about this right here on the right side is that what I'm circling in red, both of these are both amino acids. Which, again, are the monomers. And what you're seeing right here, right, when it gets to this arrow right here, this is where polymerization is happening. And then in purple, right here, okay, this is the peptide, which is the polymer, right? Because as you can see, right, we go back to red real quick, you'll note that what I'm circling in red are the two amino acids from up top, right? And what happens is right here, right there, they get fused together in what's called a peptide bond. I don't really care that you know that nomenclature, but I just want you guys to physically see that these two red dots up top are being fused together right there at that yellow center to create a peptide, right? This polymer. The two monomers are making one polymer. Okay? So again, I said we're briefly going to touch upon this just enough so that you guys can get some vocab to take into the next unit, right? We're talking about this reactions idea. And the proteins that are used in these reactions are called enzymes, which I'm sure is a word that you have all heard of before. Okay, enzymes. They're special proteins that allow these chemical reactions to occur. What enzymes specifically do is that they increase the rate of the chemical reaction. Okay, what this means is they increase the speed. Okay, the rate is the speed and they're increasing the rate. So they are increasing the speed of the chemical reaction. Okay, something that is very important to remember when we're talking about enzymes is that they're really sensitive to changes in temperature. So if an enzyme is said to only work at 60 degrees, that's the thing. If it's higher or lower than that, it's not going to work as well as it could. Okay? They're also necessary for us to be alive. Okay? Without these chemical reactions that they're involved in, we wouldn't be able to live. And they're going to be further discussed in Unit 3. This is not the last that you've heard of enzymes. Okay? So, right here, this is a quick picture of an enzyme. And what you're going to see is this word active site. Again, we're not really going to go into this right now, but it's going to be something very important in our next unit. So this is a small introduction into what enzymes are. Okay, that's actually it for this lecture. As I promised, it was super quick. If you guys want to quickly fill out all the vocab words here and put their definitions right next to them and then begin your group assignment, that's where you should go to. All right. Thanks again and enjoy.